Greetings, peace, and welcome to Community Radio. I'm your host, Kim, and today is Tuesday. We're back again with another live segment. So, I will that everyone's day is going well. Um, we're going to attempt to try to continue the conversation from Thursday. There were a lot of comments on the video. Chief and I did a separate video kind of expanding on the topic. But even after we did that, a lot of other things kind of came to the forefront just surrounding that movie. So we're going to get into that a little bit. But first, I just want to, again, welcome you all back and thank you for your support. And I also want to just send a shout out to the ladies that were on the call last night for the women's group call that we do every Monday. Again, if you would like to get involved in what we're doing or be a part of the call, you can go to anewlifeglobal.org to sign up and get registered for that so you can be included in that call. And that call is for registered students. So also, if you are interested in the classes or phase one of the training, you can go to seduluhouse.com. All of the classes that we offer from phase one, the Orisha training, as well as the classes that I facilitate are on that website. And if you would like to check some of my videos out and some of my information, I also have some websites and things, and it's listed under Serious Bitch, SIRIUSBITCH. That's on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and as well as my website. It's www.seriousbitch.com. And you can go there again to sign up for classes and for spiritual work. I do spiritual work for some of the common areas that we have: relationships, love, money, etc. So you can read about those on that website. And I also wanted to remind you all to check out the 14 Keys. That is Chief's latest work, and it is a work. It's a pretty heavy book, so take your time with it, but you can get that book on Amazon. You can either just type his name in, or you can, search for the book title. And also check on his Facebook page, and he'll have a link under some of his broadcasts where you can actually just click the link and go straight to the page. But if you go to Amazon and type in his name, you can find that book. It's a really good book, and it's a very transforming book if you're ready to actually start putting in some of this work. On top of the other books that we offer, such as Solutions for Dysfunctional Families, critical book, and Grasping the Root of Divine Power. So all of those works are there. And as well, look for more classes coming from me, more classes coming from Chief, all of that. We've got a lot of things going on and a lot of stuff that's rolling out by the end of this month. So make sure you check that. So today I kind of wanted to touch on, again, some of the, last Strong's conversation, even the week before that, because it's all kind of related. So we were talking about some of the controversy surrounding Birth of a Nation, the movie that Nate Parker did. And you know what? We still have not even been able to talk about the movie because there's so much emotion centered around Nate Parker, and it's brought up so many other problems that we have, and so many other so many emotions. I just didn't realize how emotional people were about the subject. And so if you check the advertisement for today and the meme that I sent out, it said emotion doesn't trump reason. And sometimes when we start to when we pinpoint a problem, or we try to start tackling a problem and actually coming up with some solutions, sometimes we get emotional. And that can be men or women, by the way. But sometimes we use emotion as a way to just shut down the conversation. That's a tactic. Just break out in tears, or, just start babbling, just completely making no sense whatsoever, and just being completely an emotional wreck. just to shut the conversation down. Now, I'm not saying that all the time it's that's the goal of the person that's acting emotional. Sometimes it may be genuine. You may be emotional, but sometimes people use that as just a way to deflect and to change the topic, or to, just get you up off of them so they don't have to talk about it. So that's what that whole thing was about. But as Chief and I did this other conversation, just kind of expanding on what we were talking about with the hood mentality and things like that, we got a lot of comments on the video. The video that I did, if I see another black man with a non-black woman, tons and tons of comments. And if you check that video out on Enlightenment Transformation, you can read some of the comments, but they were some of them were good, you know what I mean? But some of them got really just out of hand and super emotional. People, cursing each other out. And I just thought to myself, why are you so emotional about trying to talk about just have the conversation? So someone had posted something very logical. They laid it out, laid out their side of the argument, I guess, if you want to call it an argument, or talked about their point of view. But then the reaction was just completely off and emotional. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. It's like, why is it that we get so emotional to the point to where we can't even have the conversation anymore? And sometimes this is the problem. Like, we can't move because we're such an emotional people. And a lot of people know this about black people. That's why the black church is so, it's so full of women and things like that, is because we go there for emotional release, and, we get caught up in the emotion and crying and snotting and everything and hollering and shouting and everything. It's a very emotional scene. So a lot of times politicians and everybody else, they play on our emotions because they know we'll act emotionally. Now, if we go back to our new studies, we know that emotion means energy and motion. And this is a feminine trait. It's like water, it's just kind of all over the place. And so sometimes you have to bring that masculine energy of logic and reason to give that emotion some boundaries and say, okay, bring it back in. We got to, I understand you're emotional, but let's talk, and make some sense out of what we're trying to do. So that's what we were trying to do with the conversation. Again, like I said, we really haven't even gotten to the movie, but, there was so much controversy surrounding, black women and black men and the relationships we have between each other. And we talked about this a few weeks ago when we were just talking about self-hatred, because honestly, that's what it kind of all goes back to, and it boils down to this self-hatred that we have for each other. And not even when just dealing with, men and women, women dealing with women. Like, there's so much, we got some messages where there was a lot of venom just spewed between women, or women jumping on women for trying to solve this problem, or trying to actually just have a conversation about the problem. And so I just looked at some of the responses and how some people were getting to the video, and I noticed that, when I clicked on some of the videos that some of the men were talking about this particular subject, about black women and accountability and all this other kind of stuff, I noticed that, I will say males, because you've heard Chief, he will speak directly to it. So men are not afraid to tell a woman directly what the problem is, despite the emotional display. Males are afraid, because I looked at some of these videos, and these black men, if they're black, because I can't really say, I don't know, but they are hiding behind masks. One guy it looked like the Tin Man. He had a whole tin looking helmet covering up his face, trying to make his points. And some people just have just a still or a picture there, and they don't reveal their faces at all. And I just thought to myself, gosh, like, is it that serious? Like, do they really have to disguise themselves so much just to try to get a point across to black women? And it's sad because it's like, I feel, I talked about this with a family member, and it's like, yeah, because they don't know how black women are going to react because we're so emotional. We can yell, we can pull the abuse card, we can, call the police, and black men know this. So it's like they have to tiptoe around you a little bit. And the whole point of the conversation is that they're fed up with it. Now, a lot of women will say, they just like, women of another race and everything. And to make a point clear, and this is coming from a man, this is not my opinion. The ultimate choice for a black man that a black man will make, they will always prefer a black woman. They like and love black women. But when it comes down to all of the problems and everything that they've been put through when dealing with black women, they're just like, you know what? I just can't do it anymore. This is the choice I have to make just for my own sanity. And so when you hear that, like I said, we become so emotional that we can't hear what the man is saying. And if you are a black woman that wants a black man, this is some of the things we have to do. We got to calm down so we can hear it, because it's not that they completely want to write you off. Now, don't get me wrong, there may be some that have come to that conclusion. They don't even want to have the discussion with you anymore. But it's not that they want to completely cut you off. It's just that we can't even talk. We can't even have the conversation. Or like you will see in the comments, as soon as somebody lays out rational points, they're deflecting from what the man just said, and they just go straight into insulting. You're stupid. You're this. That's why you got a big head. Like kindergarten, grade school type tactics. We don't speak to what the person just said. And we do that just as people in general, sometimes not just, concerning this particular topic, but it's a way of deflecting and shutting the conversation down so that we don't have to deal with it. Before I get too into it, let me announce the number. The number to call in and comment is 347-945-7680, and just press the number 1 to be heard. I'll bring you in. And I really like to hear from some of you. And another point I want to bring up real quick is just about the whole interracial thing, is that, I was reading, again, some of the comments and watching some of the video responses. And someone said something like, black men still haven't learned. Speaking of Nate Parker and the rape charge, black men still haven't learned. That's what white women do. They'll run and yell rape. Well, this may be true, but look at the bigger picture. Black men are not stupid. They know this risk. They are well aware of this risk. But even knowing that, they'll still take the risk instead of dealing with someone completely irrational, overly emotional, someone that's out to sabotage them, someone that won't help them build, someone that will never give them peace. They'll still take that risk. So look at that as the bigger picture. They know this. This has been documented. They've gone through it. They know the risks. So what is it about the situation that's so dire that they will still take that risk over dealing with you or dealing with a black woman? So this is something, like I said, get over your emotions and let's really talk about the problem. That is, if you care. If you don't want a black man, fine. Or if that's just your preference, not talking to you. But for some of us that still want black men and care that our daughters or whatever have black men, this is something we got to talk about. I'm going to go to a call, 443. Greetings, you're on Community Radio.
Greetings, Sister Kim.
Greetings.
How you doing?
Peace. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Real good, actually. I got to see the movie Birth of a Nation last night. That's why I wasn't
Okay.
on the call last night.
Mhm.
And after listening to Chief's Sunday show and then y'all's post show with you and him just hashing over this topic,
Mhm.
I have to say that I'm eating a little bit of crow right now because of Tuesday's show. And like I said in Tuesday's show, like I totally saw where half of the audience was coming from, and I saw where you were coming from as well.
Mhm.
So after watching all the videos, and especially after seeing the movie, I think what it all boils down to, the Nate Parker, the black women not accepting black men with other races of women, our own accountability, getting out of our own way in emotions.
Mhm.
To me, and I could be wrong, but how I'm feeling about it, I think that one, we as women, black African women, and then as a whole people, black folks, it's just so hard to change. Nobody wants to go through that healing crisis. And when I say healing crisis, and I got that from Jehudi Mahadra, who is the creator of that 21-day detox.
Right.
He talks about this a lot in promoting the detox, and then just as a lifestyle change in general. That healing crisis is hard. It's painful. It's painful emotionally. It could even be physically painful, depending on what you're trying to transition into. And it forces you to look at your own faults. And whatever the situation is, whether we're talking about this topic, whether we're talking about eating, whether we're talking about dropping bad habits, fixing your relationships, dealing with your children, I mean, it can pretty much touch on whatever you want to talk about.
Right.
You know.
It's that what do they call it? Hersheimer or Hersheimer reaction. It's like, when you finally start to attack the problem and you finally start to face what's going on, and I'm speaking, medically, how you'll have a reaction, like those symptoms and everything will flare up really, really bad because you're attacking it head on. And that's what I'm talking about, that emotional period. Like when we finally started to try to get into it, that's that reaction. It starts to kick in. That's when everything flares up. But then, like you said, after you go through it, there's a period. That's part of the healing process. Yeah.
And so that's pretty much what I dealt with over these past couple of days. And it's really ironic how after Thursday's show. So when the conversation got heated and, out of context and everything, I walked away from it initially slightly offended because I was like, how dare she say we can't go back and, try to help the underdog. I was the underdog, But then I had to really just sit down and check myself and be like, well, first of all, depending on who you talk to, I'm probably still the underdog in some people's eyes. I've not arrived all the way. You know what I mean? And then just like Chief said in his show, like, when people first come into, quote unquote consciousness, the first thing they probably do is change their eating habits. That's like 101 conscious woke person.
Right.
I don't eat meat no more. You know what I mean? But you still eating hella starch. You know what I mean?
Right.
You still not eating live foods or something like that. Or maybe you use natural deodorant now or something. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, that's great. You're making these small but very good strides to be better, more holistic, more conscious, more spiritual, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now what are you doing? You cannot stop there. And you can't be like, oh, okay, I've arrived. Now I'm going to go help somebody else. With what?
Right.
What do you have to offer them? Just like you said, you see the boy on the street. Okay, you telling him to come over on this side to what? Do you have a job for me? Do you have a place for me to stay? Do you, if I ask you these questions, can you accurately answer them for me? Probably not. So again, we have to go back, fix ourselves, fix our families, and then it extends from there. Now, if you are in a position where, you know, you can help somebody or something like that, by all means, attempt. But if they don't want to come, then they don't want to come. That's what I got from the movie.
Yeah.
When he rounded everybody up I don't want to spoil it for whoever didn't see it, but basically it was just one that threw them all under the bus at the end.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, you can't help everybody. And then going back to, you know, the whole thing with us being emotional about this whole Nate Parker thing and just with our men in general, it just goes back to us having to look at ourselves. And that's the men and the women.
Yep.
You know, and really looking at your fault in this. You're having an argument with somebody, and they're all hyped, and how could you do this to me? And I can't believe we're doing this. And y'all are going back and forth. You probably did something. You know, they may be glorifying it a little bit or whatever, but usually people don't just get all up in arms for nothing. You know what I'm saying? You have to look at both sides. So I just want to say to you and to Chief Yuya, thank you so much for clarifying the point. And I don't know about anybody else, but it definitely sparked something in me. And it sparked something in my husband, too. And I don't even think he listened to the show. I was just kind of, you know, giving him some bullet points over it. And it was crazy because Sunday we were all sitting around and he pulled out this life board. He's an artist, so he draws and stuff. So while I like to write stuff out, he'll draw it out. So he came up with this big life board and he's like, look, we got to get our stuff together. Like, we got to get these finances up and going. You have goals and aspirations. You're trying to open this salon. I'm trying to do this music thing. We both hate our jobs. We need to set a precedent for these children and stop being complacent with the day-to-day. We're complacent, but we complain at the same time.
Right.
But we don't want our children to do what we're doing. It's just a big mess. So he's like, this is what we're going to do. And, you know, I want you to look over this. I want you to see if I'm missing anything, if it could be better. But just, I need you to be on this page with me. Yeah. And I'm like, there it is. Whoop, there it is. It's right there. This is what we need to be doing. Getting our affairs in order as women, as men, as families, as friends, as sisters, brothers, and so forth and so on. All this back and forth, it's pointless. We know what we have to do. We really do. Yeah. You know, just roll up the sleeves and put in the work. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be all of that. But it's got to be done. It has to be done.
Well, thank you, Tasha, for stepping up and taking accountability. That's what we're talking about, you know, taking accountability and getting over it so that we can go ahead and find a solution. Like, at some point, you got to calm down. Like, your emotion is not going to shut this conversation down. Or, you know what, I'll just walk away. I'll just, you know, whenever you're done, maybe I'll come back to it. But the emotion, the emotional reaction sometimes has just got to stop. I'm going to bring in another caller here, 813.
You bring me
Greetings.
Greetings.
Yes. Greetings.
Hey,
Greetings.
How you doing? Peace.
Good.
I'm actually in an office right now, so let me I'm gonna put my phone on mute and I'll chime in a little later, okay? But greetings to all.
All right. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, like I said earlier, we didn't even get a chance to even talk about the movie. We still haven't talked about the movie just because of all the emotion that came out just centered around the movie and the deflection and everything. And like I said, it just brought out so many other topics that we really got to deal with. And if you remember, if you've been listening to the show, it started out with us talking about self-hatred. And I kept trying to push and get people to kind of go a little bit deeper with the conversation, but we just couldn't quite get there just yet, because we'll get people saying, like, you know, being defensive or being a little dismissive and saying, yeah, you know, I hear you, but, you know, we just got to blah, 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 blah. Like, no, we got to go a little bit deeper than that. Let's uncover it completely, because that's just a way of kind of skipping over it a little bit, you know, or it makes it seem like I'm trying to beat up on somebody or something, and I'm not. I'm just trying to get deeper into the conversation. Like, you know, we were saying that when I was watching the video, some of the video links that were, I guess, that particular show was passed through, like, black men are scared to death of how black women are going to react. So much so that they are disguising themselves in the videos. They hide behind pictures. Like I said, this one guy had a whole, like, metal helmet thing over his head. He was making some very good points. And like I said, it was very logical. It was very laid out. But he's hiding behind his helmet. So I think, too, another thing that women got to kind of look at is, and like I said, not just concerning the black-white issue, but just tackling problems in general, is that the fact that someone will take the time to outline different points and to do it in a coherent kind of way and lay it out step by step and what the issues are, that in itself is a loving and a caring act. Because they could just say, you know what, you don't get it, I'm out. You know what I mean? They could just completely not even bother to break it down to you. But you got a lot of black men who are really trying to break it down to you. I don't think we realize that they're still trying to ride with you. You know what I mean? They're still trying to get along with you, just in the fact that they're just pointing. Now, there are some people, like I said, who are just completely fed up. They don't want anything to do with it, you know. But there are some that are really trying. And then, again, like I said, you have to look at, you know, like I said, one woman was saying, black men still haven't learned. You know, white women will yell rape and blah, 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 and they can go to jail. Well, yeah, that's true, but think about it. They know this risk, and still, knowing that risk, they see that as less of a risk than dealing with you. So that's an even bigger topic, like, that we have not looked at and won't discuss. Let me bring in 864. Peace, you're on Community Radio.
Peace, love, and power to you, sister, and you know, your guests and supporters. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Greetings.
I'm doing just great, family. My name is Equanese. I'm calling from South Carolina.
Okay.
And you know, not to step on anybody's toes, but I do feel like you know, you guys are having a very in-depth conversation, even as I'm calling to share my manly experiences. And I think what you're explaining is the intimidation of what, or the lack of, that men have at times with expressing themselves to women, and sometimes even the same way coming back from women. And as we're talking about it, because it definitely goes back to the root of our problem here in America and actually in the diaspora throughout the whole world, is basically the broken family. The broken family, the fact that we would depend on so much stuff outside of our realm, outside of us depending on our woman. As me as a man, I know I'm here with my queen. We are, engaged to definitely get married in African fashion, the way that was natural to our ancestors. So that is the way that, but a lot of people are confused. A lot of people don't, and speaking about men, a lot of men may not know how to properly appropriate women. And that has a lot to do with identity. Because a lot of people that are engaging in relationships, they don't know who they are. That's why you have some guys that are in marriages that are being down low. They're going over here having sex with guys, and even where you would have a wife that, didn't even see that. And I'm sure that these conversations are or should be allowing us to exercise our accountability from my side as manhood, as saying, being a stand-up man, proud, and like you're saying, the brother had to hide behind the helmet. We shouldn't be any tuck our tail in between our legs type of cats, but we have to realize, even with the homosexuality thing going on, I saw a Q-Dog video the other day with, the Qs, they're supposed to be the manly men of the fraternity, but in the video, you guys might have saw it, it was very sickening, because it was a whole bunch of those guys, and they were running around with their buttocks completely out. Their buttocks was out, and it looked like they had war. It was a room full of men. So I do feel like our manhood is, whether it be we allow it to happen or is kind of forced on us, our manhood is being compromised now for these types of things, even with the music, that's be this. Every song that comes out is be this, be that, be this. So it's going to be some stepping up us as men we have to do, and also with the women, holding these guys accountable. Don't let your door open for any type of guy, and it's going to take a lot of self-discipline in that process. So this was a great topic, and I just definitely want to assert and interject how I felt as a man inside this wonderful discussion.
Well, let me ask you this. When speaking with your spouse about, like, if a problem comes up, do you find that sometimes either you or her, because I'm not going to say it's a man or woman, can sometimes be so emotional that we can't even talk about the problem? Or have you even encountered that, just in dealing with people in general?
Actually, my fiance and I were actually dealt with the problem the other day, and we had to get some consultation by my chief priest. And basically, I think in that case, we should allow ourselves to bring in a third party. You understand? I think that's what we don't allow ourselves to be held accountable. In that situation, I think it's more ego, just I'm right and you're wrong, or that's what. And then, like you said, it's emotions that are going back and forth. When self-discipline, knowing how to breathe, just shut the hell up. Sometimes it's not about who's right or who's wrong. Sometimes you might just have to let things blow over to get the reason of whatever the experience is, because I could be wrong, but like you said, inside that emotion, I just have that ego, and I don't want to let it go. So but hell, me as a man, I have to raise my hand and say, well, hey, baby, I was wrong about that. But I think a lot of times, in ego is what it is. Ego is what it is, and emotion drives ego, but that is going to be the thing that you could perceive that as being warped or diminished, because the guys aren't saying, hey, I was wrong, or even on the female side saying that, hey, I was wrong about that. They'll keep on continuing to push it. So I will say emotional flare-ups are a thing that will arise, but it's going to be your self-discipline, us being able to rise to our higher self. Even as I'm looking at the chakra system, you're going to have to rise to that purple level. You're going to have to rise to your brain. You can't look at things at the root level, because that's where when they say you have blood in your eyes, of course, that's the red chakra. That's the low-level chakra. So you're going to act on the low level rather than looking at the higher vibration and knowing. But there are a lot of people that are engaging in these relationships that all they know is red. All they know is emotion, rather than look at the higher side of how to heal things, make even themselves better.
I think one of the things you pointed out was important, and that was you were bringing in a third party, someone that can look at the situation in a different light, apart from both of you, that keep, kind of going back and forth with their arguments. And I think that another thing you were saying, to rise to that crown chakra, sometimes people can't get there. And one of the problems with that is because we don't have the end goal in mind, which is peace, or which is whatever our mission is as a couple. We forget that. That's a big thing. We get together in these relationships and we have no goals. We have no idea of why we're even together. We're just together just because we like each other. And so having that mission statement, which is something that Chief has pointed out so many times, having a mission as a couple kind of keeps things in focus, so that when these problems do arrive, you got to kind of check yourself and say, wait a minute. What does this have to do with our mission or what we're trying to do together as a couple? And sometimes people will forget that. And so, like you said, maybe sometimes you got to bring in a third party. And the fact that you could bring in that third person also speaks to something else, is that you both are a part of some type of system or culture or, checks and balances that you both respect and agree on. Because sometimes we'll go to these like counselors and psychiatrists and stuff who have their own agenda. And that was part of the problem with this whole movie and with this whole argument, is that I don't think as women or as black women we realize that somebody else is pulling the puppet strings. Like, there are certain people, like one video I heard a brother did, that he was discussing money and numbers about the movie. Like, the movie's not going to bring in any money and blah, blah, blah. But if you listen to Nate Parker's interview that he did, he wasn't concerned about getting his money back. He just wanted to get the movie out there. So there are certain people who are trying to push certain agendas. And when has European or these outside forces ever supported financially, ever supported anything that's about our liberation and upliftment? Never has happened. So I don't think we as women, like with the whole feminist movement and all this other kind of stuff, we don't realize that there's some other forces that are kind of pulling our puppet strings and dropping us in this situation. So now we've gotten ourselves into this situation where we're at the bottom of the totem pole, and so, that is the whole agenda, to separate, and then they slide in and do what they want to do. It's the same thing like with, I guess, gentrification and things like that. Like, we'll have our own neighborhoods or whatever and wreck it, or whatever. They'll drop a problem in the middle of it. Something will come from, some issue comes from the outside. Like, I don't know, the whole crack epidemic or whatever. We'll completely wreck each other, tear down a neighborhood, and guess what? Once we move out, boom, they move in and completely revamp the whole neighborhood. What used to be a black neighborhood or whatever is no longer there. That's what's going on in Detroit. It completely collapsed. People selling their houses for $400 on eBay. Now look, all the Asians and everybody have swept in and brought up the land. Now they're completely revamping it into something totally different. And then we're left homeless, emotional, mad, angry, complaining, not knowing that something else was the mastermind behind this. And, we as black women, just like the black women who got together, who were kind of boycotting and opposing this movie, like, who put you up to that? Somebody put you up to that. Because this is a discussion and a problem that we should be having amongst ourselves. And again, like I said, we can't even begin to have the conversation because we're so emotional, but we don't realize that emotion was kind of pricked by somebody else who has an agenda. You know what I mean? Yeah, but thank you for your comments, and I'm going to leave you on. So as we're talking, you can just kind of jump in whenever, and make your comments whenever you like. So I'm not going to mute your mic. You can just mute your phone until you're ready to come in. But yeah.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I just wanted to add in, even because I didn't know that if you're saying that there was a group of sisters that were actually boycotting the Nat Turner movie or something to that. Mm-hmm. Is that what the issue is?
Well, we started with just the whole self-hatred thing, and then the movie, we started talking about the movie. But I remember when I started to do some research, I found that there were a lot of black women that were saying they're not going to go and see the movie because he's married to a white woman and because he's been accused of rape. And so we had that discussion, and Chief and I did a video kind of expounding on it a little bit. And that whole movie, and one of the people that said something against it was one of the actresses that were actually in the movie, saying that, yeah, I was a victim of rape too. But this man paid you to be in the movie. So, and it was a black woman. So it's like, we've got to start to look at the bigger picture. It's just another tactic of, divide and conquer. And like I said, we don't realize that there are outside forces that are kind of pulling the puppet strings of to make us do these kind of things. Like I said, we haven't even gotten to the actual content of the movie to discuss how the movie is bringing up some very real topics that we should be talking about, other than, this man's married to a white woman and blah, blah, blah. But it speaks to something much deeper. And again, that is this hatred that we have for each other and these emotions that we're hanging on to instead of fixing the problem. You got black men saying they're tired of black women. Then you got black women saying, well, black men, blah, 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 just a back and forth argument. And nobody is stepping back and saying, okay, let's calm down. Let's look at what these men are saying. And then let's come up with a solution and start to try to fix the problem. We can't even get to that point because everybody's so emotional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And I just wanted to add, because I saw everybody's throwing the stats out about the opening week inside that, comparing to, Tyler Perry's Boot, whatever, Medea's Boot. And I think it almost like tripled, almost maybe quadrupled, the number in the opening week. Yeah. So even in that, because you're right, the people, and even in being that we're discussing amongst family, and I'm not going to beat the brother Nate Parker up, but I will say this, that when we are looking to go back to liberate ourselves in an integral way as a black man, we definitely, because that should be the first thing, we should definitely have our black queens on our side. Even I would look at it still warped, even if he was a man married to another man. And I think just quite naturally that type of thing is going to get some criticism. But on the other hand, I will say that the critics aren't that critical on this man Medea wearing a dress and making money, and how our manhood is being compromised on a daily basis. And we basically are killing our manhood, where we're calling each other names and we're putting on dresses. We're doing everything except for stepping up to the plate and taking care of our family like responsible black men should be doing. So I definitely do, look at a bigger picture. But and like I said, I think just those statistics from the opening week, just that spotlights on the level even in the chakra system, that shows a lot of our people are at the root level. They're still looking to be entertained. They're still looking to be very emotional. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They are, rather than looking at this issue of police brutality, where we're getting the bad end of the bargain here in America, we'll rather just laugh it away. And that is very immature as a people, but that is where our people are. We're looking for somebody else to do a job for us. We'll wait on Jesus, we'll wait on Allah, we'll wait on everybody to come and do it, except for us standing up and, maintaining our responsible role. So, that emotional thing, I think that definitely goes with the childlike mentality that we exercise as people, and we're going to have to definitely come up out of that. We're going to have to definitely seek, like you said, seek the end result. We got to look at the exit strategy rather than, I'm just going to die and go to heaven. We got to look at, hey, I'm going to get out of this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Good conversation, sis.
Yeah. And it's about, it's about survival. I don't think people realize that. It's almost turning into this survival of the fittest type thing. This has to do with us continuing on as Black people. You know what I mean? I think we look at it in a very trivial way, like it's not that big of a deal. But like when certain movies come out, like this one, that's about our liberation and about our freedom and getting our stuff together, we won't go and support it. We find all these other little things. Well, he's married to a white woman. Well, he's this. Well, he's that. We find all these little things to nitpick about to avoid dealing with the real issue, and that's us becoming better people for our own survival. You know what I mean? We'll find, we go see movies like this one with that Lifetime just put out with Dr. Dre and Michelle and all this other kind of stuff. Another movie about bickering and arguing between a Black man and a Black woman, just to hype that up even more, to further separate us even more. You know what I mean? So, and we got to realize who put this out. Lifetime. Like the Lifetime Network, a channel that is, if you've ever seen it, I don't watch it, but if you've ever seen it, every single movie on that channel is about a man attacking a woman, or being brutalized by a woman, or being hurt by a man, or something like that. It never puts any accountability in the woman's hands. It's always, we're always the victim. And so we don't look at that. You know what I mean? We'll support, like you said, we'll support the Medeas, we'll support the R. Kellys, we'll support the Africa Bambatas, people who have been, Nate Parker was cleared of his charges. We'll support these people who have proven to be agents who have totally, disrespected the women and the men who have contributed absolutely nothing to our development. We'll still support that strongly. Yeah, R. Kelly, he did this to this girl, but she knew what she was doing. Wait a minute. We gotta check that. At some point, even the homosexuality thing, I was having another conversation with a family member about this. A lot of Black women, will befriend men like that. We think it's cute that they, try to dress up like us and mimic us and imitate, when we really should be offended. We really should make these men feel like, are you seriously reducing being a woman down to a wig and some makeup and some implants or something like that? Like, get out of here with that mess. But we think it's cute. We'll laugh and giggle about it and everything else, not realizing this is tearing our community apart. If everybody goes gay, how are we going to reproduce? So it's like, we gotta start looking at the bigger picture, and stop making it so comfortable for people to give us poison, and stop taking the poison. At some point we got to raise our standards a bit and say, you know what, that's not going to work over here. You need to go somewhere else with that, because once somebody like a Tyler Perry or whomever it may be, gives us this garbage, white people or whoever it is, Hollywood, whatever, whoever it is, are looking at that and they say, you know what, that works. Let's get more of that. Just like the black exploitation movies back in the 70s. At first those movies were put out by us, and they were expressing some very real things that we needed to deal with. It was about black men standing up and getting back at the man, or whatever the situation may be. But then, white people kind of sneaked in. They saw, oh, it's a market for this. Let's turn it into some buffoonery. And we just turned around and we completely supported it and we rolled with it. So this is a common tactic. And like I said, I don't think we're looking at it as a whole to see how this is, playing out for us. And it's, like I said, it goes kind of back to this whole self-hatred thing we have with each other. We can't get along with our men. Then black women can't even get along with each other. We hate each other. So we're completely alienating ourselves from everybody. And people are sitting back watching that, and they just, wait for the opportunity to slide on in. You know what I mean? So, again, if you have any comments, you'd like to join the conversation, the number is 347-945-7680. Let me see. I'm going to try to bring Anwar back in. Anwar, are you there? Okay, I think he's still.
I'm there.
Go ahead.
Hello. Oh, greetings. Nice to hear from you guys. Now, I've been listening to the discussion. I've been analyzing almost everything you guys we've been talking about for the last 3 days, really. And I took a listen to the conversation you had with Chief, and I coming from, this is going to be my perspective because I'm mixed, as say so. I am personally about 60 to 75% African and white. Okay, my mother is European. Her father was a European, and my mother's mother was Indian and mixed with the European. My dad's mother was African. My dad's father was Pakistani Indian. So that's my mix right now. And me personally, I don't seem to work well in European society, or not even that, just Caucasian and white society, because their culture does not relate to me in how I was raised inside of my own culture and my family. I was born in South America, and then also when my mother came to America, the cultures that I had in South America, in Suriname, South America, came with her also. You know what I'm saying? And then with me traveling back and forth to my country, learning my culture, I have a very distinct cultural awareness of where I'm from, where I was built at. You know what I'm saying? And I've gone through the routine when I was younger, dealing with white people, and even dating a white woman when I was younger, like in high school. But that does not mix with mine. You know what I'm saying? I can't sit there and talk about what we do and what the things that we do in Suriname with somebody that's from Ohio. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't work too well. And even now, I only date brown-skinned women, and mainly because I only date brown-skinned women. I also date usually particular women that have a heritage not rooted here in America. And it's not taking anything away from American brown-skinned women, but I like the fact that when you have a household and culture inside the household, and you get inside that household, it's similar, it matches the culture that I have in my household. That works well for me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, like I said, I'm not, and I'm just gonna be real, I'm not really attracted to white women at all. That doesn't rock my boat whatsoever. But I find myself being a better person inside of that type of atmosphere when I get inside of a relationship with a melanated system that actually has some culture already placed in there other than just American culture. Because I personally feel American culture is, it has been made into some kind of avatar of a culture, but it's not really, it's not our culture. It's not where we really dig ourselves into, and it's not rooted in something that I would consider to be us being in our quote unquote God sense. So that's how I look at it, and I dealt with like the comment of what we were saying, hood chick or hood individuals. Yeah, okay, those are certain. When I say hood, let me define that for me. When I say hood, I say people that are completely just wrapped in just doing what they have to do at any moment in time, not having no morality, not having no concept of how they want to raise their children, their family. They don't care about nothing else but themselves. That's my definition of somebody that would be really hood. You know what I'm saying? And that wouldn't even adapt to me as a person, because I have compassion and caring for the things that are around me, and I know where I want to see myself and the people that are around me and the community that I'm with. I have a vision of where they want to be at. I have a collective vision with the same community members, and if that person does not mix or match that profile that's inside of it, just like you said, and I respect this, is that you can't help everybody.
Yeah.
And just like how I say is like even with the classes, look, I got to wear my shoulder pads. I got to make sure I'm completely ready to get inside of this class, so I don't put any kind of blockage onto the train moving forward. You feel me? And I think that's the same concept with those people that we would label as hood. You know what I'm saying? That they can't really just jump on the train when you have a pure train going forward, and then this dirty something just comes inside of the train and slows the train's process. It's not going to happen like that, and I don't think we need to allow it as people.
But you know what? I understand what you're saying, but jumping on the train or taking the class or whatever, that is the process to heal. You're not going to get it by yourself. You can't get it by yourself. You can't have a community with just one person. So the point we're trying to bring up is, the point we're trying to make is that we got to go through the fire. Like, we got to have the conversation. You got to get over your emotion. If we're talking about take the class so you can get better. You have to be within a community of people who can kind of check you and say, wait, that's not right. That's not, that's what the whole rite of passage and all these other, these things like this womanhood training, manhood training, that's what that's about. It's not about, get your stuff together and then come on. Because how do you know you got your stuff together? You don't know, because you're not functioning within a community.
Let me define what I was saying, getting my stuff together clearly, okay? Mm-hmm. For me, it's a money thing right now for me, because I'm in debt. So me spending certain monies to go into something that I do believe in and want to focus in would be beneficial, but I have to deal with some children issues, or I have to deal with my car issues, or I have to deal with this, or I have to deal with a certain job performance that it doesn't even relate to the culture that I'm trying to bring forward. I have to me personally, I think there's certain things that I have to kind of clear out my path so I can focus into the class. And that's how I would describe me putting on my pads and getting ready for the class. That's how I describe it. So we need to be clear on that definition. And I agree with you, is that a community is not just one person. And I really do believe that we, as overall, it's the way we all speak to each other that makes the spark of achievement or going past the level that you're at help, and just like male and female conversations, like we have problems with the way we talk, and sometimes it's just the tone and the volume of how we're talking to each other that really throws us off. So, I like to keep it real. I find the best conversations for me has always been really center tone, direct, and inquisitive tone.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna come at you direct, and I'm gonna I gotta call you to it. When we're talking, when you say you gotta, you have other things to deal with first, that's part of the excuse. That's another excuse that we use to stall our development. If it's important to you, you'll get it done. And the price of the class is pretty low, considering what you'll get back from it. So again, I think it's like we have to prioritize certain things. Like some of the things you brought up are things you're dealing with alone because of a jacked up culture. So why not put it in focus and say, you know what, this particular thing I know is going to free me from some of these problems that I have, and so I got to make it a priority. It's the same thing, like I said, with the whole conversation that we were having with women who want black men, who say they love black men, but at the same time they're hating on them, for saying, you know what, we have been waiting on y'all to get your stuff together for over 30, 40, 50 years. And at this point, it's like, okay, it's time out for the excuses. I'm trying to survive here. I'm trying to build something. So I can't fool with you right now. I can't deal with you right now. Now, like the mob, I got to turn my back on you. So it's like we keep coming up with more and more excuses as to not, excuses and reasons why we can't move forward. Why I got to deal with this. Why I got to deal with that. Why I got, again, it's like, how long is it going to take you to finally say, you know what, this is a priority. This is the solution right now. And I know this is going to work, and this is going to free me from some of those problems. So I got to make it a priority and just go ahead and do it. And again, like you can't, it's obvious and it's clear, in the situation that we're talking about with women and men, we can't get it together on our own. We haven't. It's been over 20, 30 years. We haven't gotten it together yet. So at some point, we got to stop being emotional. We got to stop making excuses and sit down and say, okay, let's tackle this. Just like Sister Tasha was saying, her husband got the board out and he was like, look, okay, it's time out for the excuses. This is the goal. This is what we're trying to do. So let's just stop the nonsense and let's go ahead and get into it. We can't keep, just dawdling around making excuses and saying, I got to do this first, or I got to do that first, and then I'll be ready. It's just like that whole, going to heaven thing. Well, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and then I can get to heaven. Or, it's just excuse after excuse after excuse, and it's just really time out for that. Like I said, it's about our survival. It's now coming to a life or death. It's now coming to a life or death thing. So, having a discussion, getting over your emotion, paying the $99, whatever it is that is standing right in front of you like a billboard with flashing lights saying, this is the solution, and you're saying, yeah, I'll get to it. Just not right now. I got something else to do. Like, at some point, you got to check that.
Yeah.
You got to check it. You know what I mean?
I agree completely with you. I agree completely with you. Give thanks. I'll always take you in the council of UCAM, and I appreciate it. You are the silverback. But it is true. It is true. Like, that's really not an excuse. And as a man, we're not supposed to be putting up excuses. So I will take that in. And that conversation that we just had is a good example of how men and women should intertwine to each other and take each other's advice. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's all love. I'm going to bring in, I think this is Chief. He had a comment. Greetings, Chief.
Peace. Can you hear me?
Peace. Yes.
Peace, everybody. Yeah, this is a distinction of a really good discussion. I think it definitely can go in many different directions from here. You know, but I know I heard something. As usual, I was unable to listen to all of the segment, but I did hear something earlier from, I think, Tasha, where she said that you know, like her and her husband, I'm guessing it was after watching the movie, her and her husband kind of sat down and were like, okay, let's you know, maybe we need to change course or make certain moves. And can you type just a little bit louder, Sister Kim? Just a little bit.
Oh, that's not me.
That's me.
That's Tasha.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Them doggone fingernails, long fingernails. So
I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah, okay. You know, they down south, they wear those long nails. But
don't even start.
But yeah, you know, I think a key piece, you know, because we're talking about, you know, the emotional aspect and emotionality that we kind of explore when some of these subjects come up. Like Tasha and her husband, they were able to have that conversation because they know undoubtedly that they are family. So there's not a discussion on, you know, like even Anwar, when you came on just now and then you're giving your ethnic background, which matters little, you know, but it's like we have to always put these qualifiers to say, well, I'm in this discussion, I'm melanated, this or that, or like I know Sister Michelle had called in the last show. She gave, you know, great insight, but she precursored it by saying, I'm not black. I don't consider her non-black. I don't consider Dominicans non-black. You know, so I think sometimes what halts the discussion is, well, not only what halts it, but what deters it is sometimes we don't know who we should be talking to. And at other times, we don't have a comfort level because we haven't properly marginalized ourselves. And I know a lot of times when we look at being marginalized, we look at it in a harmful sense, but it can actually be advantageous. And I'll give the example of the Ashkenazi Jews, so-called Jews, the Ashkenazis, right? Back in the days, they were, you know, you had the Ashkenazis, which kind of appeared, and then you had the Sephardic Jews, which were like the traveling nomadic ones. But the Ashkenazis were like they were the ones where you hear like the Yiddish, like Woody Allen, his family would be the Ashkenazis. They spoke Yiddish, but they were from Eastern Europe. But the whole, without the history lesson, the whole science of it was that this was a group of Europeans who said, I don't like what we're doing. This isn't working for us. Let's borrow a history. Let's borrow a legacy and call ourselves something different, even though we're all here in Europe. So externally, I guess people could just say, oh, those are just white people. Like we say, oh, those are just black people. But they said, no, we're not white. We're Jews. We're Ashkenazis. You know, and then you have Ashkenazic, which means kind of like Jewishish. So not really even Jewish. So there was an idea here that we'll take a group of us who want to practice these Hebraic laws and we'll separate ourselves, even amongst our own people. So I think some of the challenge comes in when we're speaking about what a black man is doing or what a white man is doing or a black woman is doing and how we feel about it. And we haven't really set the qualifiers yet for who's black and who's not black. Or more importantly, if we should even be using that term, because it's such a confusing one. So if someone is black, or I mean, no one's black, but if I'm calling someone black, now immediately I instill a certain measure of expectation that maybe shouldn't even be there because, you know, they may say, well, listen, I'm Ashanti. The other one may say, I'm Ewe. The other one may say, I'm Eritrean. One may say, well, no, I'm Kenyan. The other one may say, I'm Somalian, or, you know, I'm Zulu. The word black doesn't even come into play, but it's understood because of all of those different ethnic and national structures, that there's going to be different behavior and different expectations. So when you just say, well, a black man should be doing this, which black man? And who are we called? How are we defining black? Again, like I said in the video we did, is it based on the amount of pigmentation someone has? Because I don't necessarily feel a kinship with every dark person. I don't feel that kinship. I don't even feel a spiritual, soul, energetic, vibratory connection with every dark person. You know, so sometimes that can be confusing. But if we were to marginalize ourselves, like I say, I'm a new. That's what I am. So you may hear me talk about Arisha. Oh, so you're Yoruba? No, I'm not Yoruba. No, I don't even look like a Yoruba. Not Yoruba. You know, and trust me, for those who travel to the continent, I don't know if anyone on the line does or has, but I spend a lot of time on the continent of Africa, and nowhere am I truly, honestly considered to be a black man. That terminology is only utilized for foreigners. You know, if you're not linked and identifiable, like people will look at me and say, like if I'm in Nigeria, everyone thinks I'm Igbo. They always say, oh, you look Igbo. But it's by the look, Igbo. They don't say, oh, you look black. If I'm in Ghana, they always say, oh, you look Ashanti. Why? Because the Ashanti are a little bit lighter, but they're big. Like me, I'm a bigger man. And most people there are pretty small. So they say, oh, you must be Ashanti. But no one says, matter of fact, one of the last times I was on the continent, I had a conversation with someone. And he asked me, this is the first time anyone ever asked me in my life. It was a friendly conversation. And he said, what qualifies you? Like he said, why do you call yourself black? What qualifies you to be black? And he wasn't being antagonistic, and he was honestly curious. He said, how are you black? And I paused for a second because I've never really been asked that question. And I said this, I said, my hair is nappy. And he said, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he said, your hair is nappy. You know, but aside from that, yeah, what makes me black? Black is a consciousness. Black is not a genetic disposition. Black, there's no black land. We could say Kemet, you know, but there really is no black land in the contextual idea and the ideation that we create of what black is. So we have to focus more on nationality. People are focused on Nate Parker because he has a Portuguese. I'm thinking Portuguese because it's Santos, but I don't know if she's non-black. I don't know that just because of how she looks, you know. But he's also a diehard Christian. If you listen to the interview he did, he kept talking about, you know, I prayed to Jesus and Jesus Christ. I knew I was going to make this film. And if you look at Birth of a Nation, it had very strong biblical overtones. You know, so why are we even brought up? Right. Yeah. Why is that not a problem? You know, so it kind of should give you a clue of what direction the programming is taking you. The programming attacks the fact that he created a liberation film, and it finds things, but your programming is not attacking the fact that the film was basically a biblical story. It was the Ten Commandments. You know, we're not attacking that. And even in his interviews, he said this wasn't a movie about black against white. This was a movie about a man fighting evil. So he's using these political terms. And then if you even watch the movie, the way white women are depicted in the movie, they're fairly innocent. Right. But we know that from the history, you can even look at the images of some of the lynchings. You see white women there and the children laughing and playing and looking at it and pointing at the dead Africans hanging from trees. So they were just as involved and just as guilty as anyone else. But this man is married to someone who may or may not be non-black. So there's a lot of different elements in there that I think we're missing. But ultimately, if we're not focused on us marginalizing ourselves, if we say, okay, those of us who are conscious, those of us who are African-centered, and obviously when we use the term African here, it means something different than when you use it on the actual continent, because no one there calls themselves African. There's no conversation about African thought. You may hear the term Pan-African, but not very often. They're speaking about their actual nation. I'm Ashanti, I'm Fanti, I'm Ewe, I'm Ga. They're all these different things, you know. So my point is, if we want to have a healthier conversation about how men and women can conjoin, we first have to make a determination of which men and which women are of our fabric. And then once we make that determination, we can then speak about what the expectations can be. We can't do that just using blanket terms like black men, black women. That's not enough. Just like you can't say white people. Because when I think white, I think of the people who call themselves Jews too. And they'll fight you to the death if you call them white. They'll say, no, I'm Jew. And I live by
or
a
even
different
Irish,
code.
the Irish, British.
Who live by their own code. And that's an intelligent thing to do. If you're sitting there and you're looking at those who you're being identified with, and you say, listen, I'm not really with this. I don't really agree with this. I have to figure out a way to create my own nation aside from this, because I'm not going to take the penalty of the bullets that's coming for this group here. So they say, okay, well, we're going to be Jewish. We're going to take what we saw these North Africans do, because those were the Hebrews. We're going to take what they did, and we're going to co-opt that. And in doing that, we can now segment ourselves from the destructive behaviors of our kinsmen.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point that you brought up about being Jew-ish. You know, they're not exactly Jew, but we're kind of like Jews. Or even the television show Black-ish. You know, I remember that show even got a lot of backlash when it came out because, you know, of some of the things that were portrayed in that show. But they're not saying black; they're saying Black-ish.
It's a safer term because if you look at even how we're classified, they say we're carbon-based beings. No, some are carbon-based. That's like looking at the difference between a pig and a boar, or a black chicken and a Purdue chicken. You know, some are carbon and some are carbon-based. Some are man and some are mankind. You know, so even if I look at a Nate Parker, and for me, from my perspective, from where I'm standing, just me, Chief Yuya, with Chief Yuya standing, Nate Parker is blackish. Because for me, black is a conceptual state of mind. If you sitting there praising Jesus all day, nah, you're not within this concept, but you have some remnants and tenets of it. So it's the same thing if I look at mankind. Nah, you're not really, you're human. You're not man, you're human. You're the created man or the colored man, the brightened man, but you're not really man. You're not Jew, you're Jewish. You're not Asian, you're Asiatic. You know, so I would say the same. And a lot of people who we're saying, this is a black man, he should be doing this, they're really blackish.
Yeah.
Really. And we're putting the wrong expectations on them.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I think that's something that we don't consider either. Like you said, who are we aligning ourselves with? And I think we do, just like what you were saying, even when Africans come to America, they identify themselves with either their country or, like you said, most of the time they'll say, oh, I'm from Ghana or, oh, I'm from Nigeria. Or, because maybe they don't think we're familiar with the terms of God or Ewe or things like that. But, yeah, here, the whole term African American, that's another group,
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's
African American is a group, pro-blacks are a group, Rastas are a group, 5%ers are a group. You know, when you say those different terms, there's a different thought that's invoked. For instance, when I'm on the continent, for most intents and purposes, I have to call myself American.
Mm.
You know, and I always joke when, you know, once I get to know a person there, I always say, you know, if someone called me American back home, man, I might go upside their head. That's a high insult. But there's also certain places where I'm considered a white man.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called Oyimbo in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called Obruni in Ghana, white man. You know what I mean? And people say it casually. Yeah, Kafa, that's different. That's clearly derogatory. But it's people say like, oh yeah, you're Oyimbo, so it's okay, you can afford it. You know. Yeah. But part of that again is us not having a clear allegiance, you know, cultural allegiance, not having a clear cultural investment. So we don't know who to separate ourselves from or who to conjoin with. And a lot of us are devoid of our own natural and proper spirit. So we can't feel the vibes of other people anymore. We can only go by what the physical eye is telling us. Oh, this person is dark. This woman, she's light, but she's got big hips and a big behind. Okay, she's with us. Come over here. You know, it's that type of thing. And, you know, interesting enough, in Ghana, if you go to Central Region, there was a time that's how, when the Dutch was there and some of them had established schools, that's how they determined what grade. I mean, we talking not that long ago, but that's how they would determine what grade you went in by your height. Oh, you're short, you look like you should be in first form. Oh, you kind of tall, we'll send you to second form. And I mean, I have friends there in their 40s who remember this. So this wasn't that long, you know. So we're not talking about we're talking about after independence. But some of the people who still came from foreign who said that's how they were still classifying people by their height. No different than what you had in Rwanda. Oh, your nose is like this. Oh, you're Hutu. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're Hutu. You know. So it's the same type of thing, and we have to kind of go beyond that because we're using some of the same standards of reference that our invaders are using. You know, I listen to Anwar. He's black to me. Yeah. You know, Michelle is black. You know what I mean? Like, and again, when we say black, I'm not just like when I say African, I'm not saying a continent. When I say black, I'm not talking about a racial designation. I'm talking about a designation of consciousness. When I say black, when I talk about African, I'm talking about a designation of consciousness, not a connection to a geographical landscape. Yeah. You know, I've gone to the continent. I had to tell people on the continent, I'm more African than you are. I mean, I go to Nigeria to teach and to do rituals. How's that? Think about that for a second. I go to Ghana. I'm called into Ghana to do juju for people who were born there, you know, Ghanaian. So it's a state of consciousness. Does Nate Parker have that state of consciousness? I don't know. I don't think so. From what I've witnessed, I don't pick that up in him, you know. So I'm not going to hold him to the same things. And I would say this too to all the people who are listening who have such an issue behind his apparently, and I'm going to say apparent because we don't know, non-black white. Although he did say in an interview once that she was not born in Africa, however, she is awoke and conscious. He did say that about his wife. Whatever that means. I
did read that. And then he did say, you know, I think he said, I give her stuff to read, and she reads it.
Yeah, he probably give her the Bible to read. So I ain't going by that. You know, somebody needs to give him a book to read. You know, he always talking about Jesus Christ in every interview. But you know, here's an important thing. Think about this for a second. I've often said this about Aleister Crowley. Right now, our people are being oppressed, killed, shot down in the streets. We all know the story. And I'm saying our people for parenthetical reasons because I don't personally consider everyone who shot down in the street my people just because I'm dark and you dark. But I will say this. If you could incarnate, if there was a way that you could incarnate in your next lifetime, or let's say you could die today or die next week, and you could come back next month or next week, and you could come back as a Caucasian. Those of you who are melanin dominant listening. And if you coming back as a Caucasian could put a total end to racism and oppression, because maybe there was something that you would be able to do that will put an end to it, would you do it? Knowing that as a melanin dominant being, that all of the other races exist within you, so you have the ability to incarnate as anything that you want, would you come back as a Caucasian in order to end oppression and racism? Or like Aleister Crowley, who I always thought was a black man. I mean, he was hood, on drugs and sex, But because of him, we got a whole different connection to the occult vibration of Kemet that we wouldn't have had.
That's true. Yeah.
But I would say this. Let's look at Nate Parker and his apparently non-black wife. You never know how the Egun, the ancestors, are orchestrating things so that other things can happen.
Yeah.
You never know. You don't know how this thing works. Perhaps Nate Parker needed to have that woman in order to line things up in a way to do the things that he did. Maybe there's something spiritual there that we're not aware of. No different than when Sidney Poitier married his wife.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I read in an article, he was like, I didn't love her. He said, I didn't love her for years. He said, I grew to love her because of what she did for me. But he said, I only married her so that certain doors can be open to me. But there was no love whatsoever. I mean, Sidney Poitier was Jaying Diane Carroll. So, you banging Diane Carroll, it's hard to go anywhere from there. That's like messing with, Serena Williams or something. Where am I going to go next?
Yeah.
So you Jaying Diane Carroll, and then, all right, here, come on, Gertrude or Gladys, whatever come on, Gladys, we're going to get married, and you're going to open up some doors for me so I can now be an activist. So again, we never really know how things are being orchestrated, and we sometimes need to look with a different eye. Stop looking with those physical eyes so much. Look with your Ori Iwaju. Look with your first eye, with your pineal, and say, hey, what the heck is being orchestrated here? What's being mapped out? Maybe this is deeper than this human story that I'm so attached to.
I think that's a very good point. Let me just interject again. If you'd like to make a comment or if you're on the line, just press 1. The number is 347-945-7680. And, chime in with your comments because, a lot of people had a lot of things to say in the comments on the video, but those people aren't appearing or aren't voicing what they have to say on air. So I want to encourage you to join the conversation. But that's an interesting twist, to things. Like we can't really see what's being orchestrated. I'm going to bring in 864. Greetings. 864. 864. Can you hear me? Okay, they hung up. Again, going back to what you were saying about we can't see the overall picture and not really understanding how the Egun are orchestrating things because, for the most part, we talked about this once before. Sometimes, being that Eshu of your family or of that group, I think you said once, like sometimes they're not coming back. We're creating so much, so many problems. We're creating so many children who are so anti, rising up and restoring some things to our ancestral lines that they got to find other ways to do it. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna try to bring them back in. 864. 864.
Hey.
Greetings.
Hey, this is Pedro.
Okay. Peace, Pedro. How are you?
Peace. What's going on, Chiefs and everybody? I want to say peace. I just wanted to say that was major what Chief just laid down as far as the black thing because that's what I was trying to start up myself, get people to study on stuff like the straw man and stuff like that, as far as how they use your name and the Social Security card, as far as with the ID and birth certificate thing. But as far as like what Chief's saying, like with the whole nationality, like that's real major as far as like who we need to define ourselves as. That shows a real big mind state.
So how do you identify yourself?
I'm really trying to, as far as like with me, period, I just identify myself as far as like energy as a living being, just I am. As far as like, I don't know my true nationality as far as my name. That's what I've been pretty much researching lately, as far as trying to get a true name from a family. But it's been kind of hard because, you know, don't nobody really know. You know, I live in Anderson, South Carolina, so it ain't really a lot of people who know their true, you know, national heritage or whatever, culture or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we came up with the terms African American, Black, Negro, colored, all this other kind of stuff, is because that is part of it. Like we can't even trace back to who we came from because of our names. You know, all that has kind of been erased. So we kind of just lump ourselves all in together as, you know, based, like Chief said, based on pigmentation or the one drop rule or whatever the case may be. We really don't know. So going back to our new spiritual training and everything else, we got to just kind of first just go back to family before we can even branch out into a community. Like we got to, like Sister Tasha and her family did, like we got to get together, figure out our mission, and move forward from there. You know, what are we trying to do as a family? What are we trying to do as, you know, husband and wife, if that's, you know, if those are the terms that you use. What are we trying to do? What's the goal here? So that we can call ourselves something. You know, we gotta figure out what we are and who we are before we can do it. But just going back to the movie, even in the movie, something, you know, that you brought up was about, you know, the Christian overtones in the movie. I don't think anybody has even spoken to that, just because we got off on so many other things. If you notice in the movie, it started out, he got his purpose, and that he found that soul purpose by, you know, in the beginning they were speaking Yoruba, and he went to a priest or a diviner that was telling him, this is who you are. This is who you are. And I found it interesting that, you know, even after making this movie and just throughout the whole making of the movie, there was no focus put on that. You know, this is where you got it from. So why go into the whole Christian thing? You know, that's the same thing even with Roots. It continued on, but it started, you know, we know the start. You know, we know where our purpose and everything came from, where those things originated, but we've all kind of gotten off track a little bit. So I think that's something to pay attention to in the movie as well, you know. And like Chief said in the interviews, he kept talking about Jesus and this, that, the other. So is he really considered by you as one of you or us, or, you know, these kind of terms we throw around? Let's see here. Let me go back to the call. Go ahead.
Okay, so, I want to kind of relate something. I had posted a paragraph from 14 Keys, and Chief really just kind of broke it down to a second ago. And I'll just use this line as a quote so people can reference from the book. Today, many lack an easily referenced set of norms of conscious, of community, varying aims. Now, Chief, what Chief just said, like we keep on putting our I'm Dominican, I'm Surinamese, I'm mixed, all these little references, but we're failing to recognize what Chief was breaking down. What makes us black? Black was the consciousness, and I just wanted to put that insight in. That's the concept that we, as men and women, need to understand. Is that who are we talking to? Are we talking to someone that is black consciousness? You know, with the consciousness, are they on the level that we're at? And how are we speaking to the people that we have? And from all the shows that I've listened to in regards to this topic, especially dealing with male-female relationships, is that I think the biggest problem we have is that we don't know how we're talking to each other, and we're expecting someone to understand us when that person might not even be at that point yet, or might be above that point. You know, so and just the way the tone is, the way we express our love in our conversation. I think that's one of the major things that we can do as male and female to have better conversations with each other.
I think too we got to kind of look at when we use the blanket terms of black and things like that. We kind of do look at pigmentation a bit, because when I look at other races of people, it's like ultimately they instinctually know that this is supposed to be my counterpart. This is supposed to be my counterpart. This is the person that I'm supposed to be mated with, because they're male and female created within that race. So I think too that's kind of what we think about when we think about black, and when we see people kind of step outside of that. You don't see, like in the Asian community, for instance, you have a lot of them mating, with white people now, and I think it has a lot to do with finances. But for the most part, they stick within their group. But then we can, you can still narrow it down even more. You got Buddhist, Shinto, all these other things that are surrounded, or culture is taken into consideration. So we can kind of have the same mindset. Even on this call and on yesterday's call with the women, I think we have to realize, like the women that are on that call, the advice or, the things that we talk about, they are centered around our new culture and what's right and wrong for our new people. And I think sometimes even on the call, we forget that this is not, just because I facilitate the call, I'm not speaking for Kim. These are not Kim's ideas. This is a new group. So what's right and wrong, or if I, say something, is based on that particular culture. It's not based on a black woman, just using the blanket term, or even Kim. It's a new thing. Let me bring in, I think this is Brother Byron. Peace, Byron. How are you?
Peace, Sister Kim. We're very well, thank you. Peace, Chief. Peace, callers. Peace, everyone. I'm really glad to be able to partake on the show. I've been listening for a while, so I'm glad I've got some space now to partake in the discussion. I was thinking about the topic that you set out on the webpage on Blog Talk, about how we often shut down conversations or challenges by having large emotional responses when the dialogue is happening. And I think it's something that my wife would call it deflection, where when we're faced with an issue or a situation to deal with, we can either, or in a conversation, we will deflect, and often we can do that in our lives as well. So rather than doing what we are advised to do or instructed to do, or what we know to do, we will develop constructs whereby we will say, oh, well, I'll do that later. I won't do that now. I'll put it off to another day. So I think it's something that we should try and think about why we behave in that way. And when I was thinking about that, it's because I feel that the first response is an emotional response. And when we catch ourselves with an emotional response, sometimes we're meant to hold that feeling and try and apply some logic to the situation. If we let our emotions take us away rather than us containing our emotions, that's when we lose the beauty or the essence of what the conversation is all about. So for me, it's about balancing our emotion and containing our emotion, but also applying some logic to the situation so that we can respond appropriately. So that's what that's what I'd like to say about that.
Yeah, give thanks, Baba. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Chief.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, Baba. Yeah, man. You make a very good point. I'm just placeholding for Sister Kim for a moment. She had to step away, but
no problem.
I think one of the challenges in what you're speaking about is that sometimes we're having those dialogues with the wrong format. Like you say, being able to maintain the reason and the rationale within a dialogue becomes difficult. Yeah, when certain subjects are very personal, especially, when you're speaking about love relationships, if you're speaking about religion and politics, these are things that people tend to invest the whole of their being in and shape a lot of their world around. And when they turn out to be disappointing, they don't work out a certain way, it's traumatic. So when it's brought up, really, we want to say, I need to cry for a moment. I need to express my hurt. I need to express my pain before we even begin to deal with, some reason and rationale. But we live in a society where sometimes that's become a shameful thing. So, for instance, if a man is hurt by a woman, instead of saying, I did give my heart, we'll refer to some music or something that is debaucherous that tells us we shouldn't even care, or if a woman is hurt by a man, we have hordes and hordes of media, movies and TV shows that will confirm that a man is nothing. So you shouldn't even care about that because all men are dogs. And I think what would greatly facilitate, I know what would greatly facilitate some of those dialogues is that we need to have them in gender exclusive environments. The men need to speak amongst the men, the women need to speak amongst the women, because some of the thoughts and ideas and the trauma needs to be vented in an environment where there's maybe a bit more understanding, there's a bit more relative connection to those separate issues. Some of all of this and our divisiveness and our separation is a product of white supremacy racism. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But the attack that came to us as men and the attack that goes to the women are two different types of attack. So when we speak about the issue, unless we segment the separate issues, because the issues are separate, then the conversation can get very emotional because it's hard to maintain logic when the discussion is not really had in a holistic sense. And just like when we were children, we didn't get our learning, many of us, we didn't get our learning and developmental path segmented. Boys learn differently than girls. Things that are important to boys at certain ages are different, are maybe not as important for girls at certain ages, and vice versa. But when you're thrust into an environment at a very young age, there's an awkwardness that already takes place. Like when you and I were young, Baba Byron, very young, our competition was mainly amongst our male comrades and cohorts. We wanted to see who ran the fastest. And we didn't want to know who ran the fastest or who was the strongest because we were trying to impress a girl. We were trying to find out what our talents were within our gender cohort. So, for example, with me, I was never fast, ever. So whenever something happened, I was always the big stocky boy in the back running, or holding someone's shirt saying, don't leave me. I was that boy that you always see. But when it came time to break something or push something or to fight someone, I was always the one called because I was very big and very strong. So I didn't lose any of my self-esteem because I couldn't run fast and a girl was watching and I was trying to be the fastest runner to vie for her attention. I didn't gain any of my self-esteem because I was big and tough and strong and I could beat everybody, because none of those things happened in front of the complementary sex. Mm-hmm. So that my esteem was intact. So so a lot of times when it comes to our healing, we don't take the same approach, because some of us have to go back to a developmental conversation like we were babies again. We have to go that far. Oh, Brother Byron dropped, I see. But we have to go that far back again. And the men need to talk amongst each other. Like, we need to say, listen, man, the women are mad at us. And men need to be able to point to each other and say, well, I know why your wife is mad. Like, I remember having a conversation with a good brother of mine years ago about this. And he was talking about how his wife always was disrespecting him. He didn't listen, this, that, and the third. And I said to him, I said, well, of course your wife doesn't listen to you. You don't have any money. Mm-hmm. And because you don't have any money, you're uptight all the time. So you're rude. You're very nasty sometimes to her and your children because you don't have any money. And because you don't have any money, now you have lower back pains, because that's where it expresses itself, money issues. So he had a bad back, no money, and he had a woman who's looking at him like, yeah, you're not really taking care of things. So I see you differently because of our culture. Now, I didn't have that conversation in front of his wife. It was he, I, and several other, we were all martial art brothers. We spar together. So when we're sparring and fighting together, our vulnerabilities are out there on the floor. If I'm slow, I'm going to get hit. If I'm strong, everybody knows I'm strong. If I'm slow, or if I'm this or I'm that, I can take a punch. We know which ones bleed easily. So we're displaying ourselves in our most purest forms. So it's easier to have a conversation like that for me to say, yeah, you don't have any money. And in fact, I gave him some money after that conversation. He was going through an eviction process. And of course, that was between he and I. Mm-hmm. His wife didn't need to know. And the same thing with the women. Are these precious and sacred conversations being had in an environment that's supportive, where a woman can say, yeah, like I've had to tell women before who come to me for readings, oh yeah, your husband's cheating on you because you don't have sex with him, or because you're 40, 50 years old and you still won't have oral sex. So no, he doesn't. No, he's going to go sleep with a younger woman, of course, obviously. But, these are conversations that women can have amongst each other. Yeah, your husband, he looks the other way because your perfume stinks. Some of those very personal things. And that's where that community and that family comes in. That's why Tasha and her husband were able to sit down and say, we got to get it together. And there was no ego involved because they recognize one another as family. And they see each other in their purest forms. She's probably seen her husband cry. We'll never see that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he's seen her cry. We might see that, but they've seen each other in their purest forms. So there's an abasement that happens, and that's what needs to occur with us. The men need to speak and the women need to speak, and then once we can humble up a little bit, then we can speak about determining where each other's roles should lie after that. But when you're having these discussions on the internet and Facebook video or YouTube videos, of course egos are going to flare up because it's being had in the wrong format. So like what Brother Byron just outlined is exactly it, man. It needs to be conversations that are devoid of all the venom and the fire. But truth be told, that needs to happen in a gender-exclusive environment first.
Right.
And then we can get to some real stuff.
Okay.
I think that's a excellent point. We kind of touched on that last night during our call. But, even in that, that brings up a whole nother topic, because even just amongst women, when we come together as women, there's so much venom spewed at each other that we can't even we can't even get to that point. Just as women, like, there's so much there's so much in there. Like even some of the comments on the videos, like I got a lot of stuff spewed at me for just for talking to other women about this subject when you have said these things hundreds of times. But that same hate is not spewed at you. It gets spewed at another woman. And so I'm just like, why can't we even talk about it amongst women? Like women can't even
think about something for a second, Sister Kim. You know, and no one else knows, you know how many comments I have to delete off of those videos.
Right.
How many people do curse me out. In fact, one of your own friends, you remember that situation, who called in and had to be corrected. Her husband then sent me all of those emails afterwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, no, I get it. I go through it. The thing is with me, I don't count. Those people don't matter to me because you're not a part of my community. Anyone who's a part of my community knows that you can never get smart mouth with me, ever, male or female. I'm not having it. So the moment you enter into the discussion like that, I just delete you and block you off the page. So there is no back and forth with me. Just like those women, or you don't even know if they were women, first of all, because you'll find that the people on the internet who have the most to say don't even have pictures on their profiles.
That's true.
Those could be males, and on top of that, they're not a part of our community. So who cares what they have to say? Sometimes we lose some of our regality. We lose some of our grace by presenting ourselves publicly. That's the risk that we take. We put ourselves out there. We say we're our new, like when I say things like, no, I'm not following a woman anywhere. And there was backlash behind that. And sometimes people do reply, but there's a very sly way they try to throw shots at me. When I say things like that. But I'm putting myself out there for all of the men and the women who want to be a part of this community, who want to be our new. And it's not just a hobby for them. It's not a new thing to bounce around to. Oh, I just finished Buddhism, so I'm going to go try this our new thing. So that means I have to make myself a target. You're going to be a target, as I warned you before you even started doing the shows. And a lot of times when you do certain shows, I'll say, they're going to say this, so-and-so is going to be upset. This one's going to be upset, or this is going to happen, that's going to happen. If they're not a part of the community, it don't matter, so don't worry about it. They're just distractions. And I know what you're saying in terms of the women spewing venom, but the truth is this, that's your problem.
Yes.
Because men, we can't do anything about that. Let's say if you have that in your environment, and I say, okay, well, listen, I'm going to address the women. As soon as a man comes into a room, especially a man in a leadership position, the conversation is going to get phony. Now certain women are going to pretend to get along with other certain women just to get my approval.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah. So y'all got to work that out. That's on you.
Well, thank you.
And just like us men, we got to, hey, it's the job. That's the job. And just like us men, when we get together, there's a degree of ego, and sometimes there's a degree of combativeness. And we can't have a woman come in and say, okay, everybody calm down, and, no. We got to figure it out.
Yeah. Byron, you were saying something?
Yeah. So what came to me when Chief was speaking is the reason why you are getting these venomous attacks on some of your videos is because the content of your shows are touching people at their innermost self. And when they feel vulnerable, their reflex is to lash out rather than to sit still and hold how they're feeling and consider how they're feeling and what is it within the discussion that has made them feel that way. So I would say that it shows the success of what you're doing in terms that you are touching people. Now, how they respond is their responsibility, but you are touching people. So that's what I would say. So I would say, and I'm not in receipt of the comment, so, if I was in receipt of the comment, it might upset me or make me feel away. But analysing from what you're saying from afar, I feel it's because you're having an impact, and the shows are having an impact on people, and they're dealing with it inappropriately, but it's touching them.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely appreciate that. And Sister Tasha, because you did take accountability and you did speak up to that. Thank you.
Yes. No problem. And that's why I said I had to take a moment and really just, like Brother Byron said, just sit down and be like, all right, you really just all up in your feelings for no reason. Like, why am I feeling this way? You know what I'm saying? Because if I felt completely convicted in how I felt, in the how dare she, I would be like, okay, well, I was right and whatever. I'm not even really paying attention to what she's saying. But the fact that stirred something in me, I had to sit back and be like, well, why is that? You know, and that took me down a whole nother path, you know, and then that's why I said that was crazy, because even before we saw the movie last night, my husband came to me Sunday morning with this goal board, you know, and was like, look, we need to tighten up because we're just spiraling in this complacent whirlwind, you know, the living from check to check. Oh God, we gotta go to this dreadful job again. No, we already know what we have to do, and it's totally doable. You know, we just have to tighten up, get more discipline, and just do it. And it's the same thing with the women. It's the same thing with the men, and so on and so forth. But I mean, that comfortable, that sweet spot is something else, boy. It's hard to get out of that. Yeah, it's so hard, you know. But once you do it, you can look back and be like, man, I can't believe I was being hood like that.
I think, again, like I said, even just with the women, you know, when we were talking on the show, we were talking about self-hatred. Again, I have to go back and say, I think, you know, our anger is misplaced, and that we have problems with each other before we even get into the dating world, and before a man even enters that world. We got so many issues, and I think what she was saying about, you know, being thrust into a co-ed existence so early, it stunts our growth in that we can't develop those things or develop those talents that we have, because we are, you know, we instantly, you know, at 5 years old in kindergarten, you start to shrink, because what is this person going to think? What is that person going to think if I show this, if I show that? We see these boys over here. Is this boy going to make fun of me? Is, you know, so we instantly just kind of shrink down, you know, at 5 years old, and those things are never developed. So then we focus on the external. Well, let me, you know, even as adults, well, let me put on a tighter dress or some tighter pants or whatever, and get them to know, you know, we start to focus on, you know, those physical attributes more so than what we're good at. And the problem with that is that once you get of a certain age, over 25, or, you know, when a man is not really looking at you like that, now you got to kind of rely on those talents. Now nobody's looking at you physically or whatever. They're looking to see, well, what else do you bring to the table? And then we're in that position where we're like, well, I don't know, because we never had a chance to. Yeah.
I would just say
we never have a chance.
Depends on how old the man is, you know, Sister Kim.
That's true. That's true too. That's true too. But you know, just those childbearing years, you know, when we should be developing those things, we don't develop those things. It comes much later, you know, and that's when we start to focus on it. I'm going to bring in one more caller. We're actually over time a little bit, so 347.
Peace, Sister Kim. Peace, everyone.
Michelle, how are you?
Peace,
Sister Michelle.
Peace. I'm doing very well. Last night's phone call, I gotta say, it was very healing, and I recommend it to any woman who is still thinking about it or is not willing to commit. You know, last night was what, 3 hours, 4 hours?
4 hours.
4 hours. 4. But you know,
just running your mouth.
Well, we need to. You know, I find myself talking a lot about my mother and my issues, you know, and that's what we need to do. And, you know, Sister Kim just nailed it, you know, the way we're brought up. And, you know, we can cry about it, and we do, you know, but at this point, we can't cry about it anymore. We have children, you know, so it's like right now it's point of action. Like, okay, now what are we going to do? So a lot of the times we get emotional because it's hitting in such a vulnerable spot. It's about, you know, about having to change everything about ourselves. Everything that we've held to be true is now false, and now we have to move from that position. All right, so now what do I do? Right. We're so attached, you know. And with that, I'm going to say, you know, phase 1 is helping me so much in becoming detached from the mundane. You know, separating with my emotions from, you know, what's really my purpose. And I think that's where we all got to start. And, and phase 1 is going to be a rough one, but, you know, after we start letting go of things that are foreign to us, or that are spirits that are being placed, energies that are just given to us, once we separate these things, we can start aligning with, well, what's my vibration? What's the vibration of my family? You know, and you start operating at a different level, and, you know, we can actually build something good for the future instead of, you know, being like, oh, my God, the government is going to take away Social Security. You know, so I just wanted to add that last night's show was so good, and I encourage more women to join, you know, even if it's just to listen. You don't have to chat. We do enough talking, right? Like, we talk a lot, so just listening is so good, so you can see the perspective of so many women from so many different backgrounds and, like, points in their life, and we can all help each other. I know I appreciate it a lot, and I give thanks all the time. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, that call last night, like I said, it was 4 hours. we kind of went on and on and on, but again, like I said, or like Chief said, it's our problem. We got to deal with it. So we got to deal with the tears and, you know, the emotions. But after all of that, we got to get to a point where we can start making some sense and start implementing some things, or just, you know, attacking the problem head on, because, you know, like Sister Michelle said, now we have children, and it's about our survival again. So, you know, at some point, we got to be a little bit more rational and say, well, you know what? Mom dropped the ball, grandma, whoever it may have been, they dropped the ball. But you can pick it up. You can correct some of those things. And I don't know, like I said, again, I think the anger is misplaced, and we as women we gotta kind of get over some of that stuff and stop. Because, you know, by the time your mate or another man has to tell you that you're not behaving like a woman or you're not this, that's when the claws come out for real. You know, because then we're hurt, we're embarrassed, we're ashamed. But why does it have to get to that point to where a man has to tell you these things? You know, when a woman comes to you and brings these things up, know that it's coming from a loving place, you know, or safe, you know, a safe environment where we're trying to help each other, and stop stop attacking the other woman for telling you this or for bringing it to your attention, because by the time a man tells you, like I said, it's embarrassing and it's hurtful, and you feel so ashamed, you know what I mean? So again, like Chief said, I think the key is, you know, separating into those groups and learning what your purpose is, or learning what your talent is, so that you're not jealous, or you're not, you know, backbiting and all, you know, catfighting with each other, you know. I think that's a huge part.
I wanted to make a divergent point, if I can. Okay. All right. I know the question came up too, like, what do we do for the people behind us? I know that was the question for the previous show, and I did. There's something I could have mentioned that I didn't mention that I'm going to mention, because I got to go back and listen to a little bit more of it. I was trying to listen to some of it this morning. I can't seem to finish it every time something happens, but I got to listen to a little bit more, and I heard more Brother Dietrich's his stance. I don't want to say argument, but more of his stance. And I'll say this, in terms of going back and helping, that's pretty much all I do. And I'm going to speak about myself, and I'm going to explain why. Me on this phone call right now is going back to help. I already know all this stuff. I don't have to talk about this. You know, when I teach the classes, when I do the shows every Sunday, look at my face. You don't see me struggling to get the points out. This stuff I've known for decades. Half the time I'm talking, I'm bored. So, you know, that's me going back to help someone who may be behind me on the road, you know, who may be trying to come back forward. And the shows, of course, are free. And before that, it was just the Blog Talk shows, which are free. There's free stuff that's on the websites. The classes are really cheap. I have students who I've trained, and I think I may have told this once. I have someone I trained, and there's several of them, but this one incident was very funny one day. We did a spiritual fair together, and he was charging for his readings $1,200, and I was charging $45. Okay, give you an idea. And this was my student, and he had a line. His line was longer than mine. You know, he had a waiting list. Like, people had to come back the next. You know, so just to give you an idea, even the prices that I put things at, and they're affordable and everything for a reason. I know what I could charge. You know, I know what I know. You know, I know where I'm at. Even though I may downplay it at times, and even when I downplay it, it's because I want you to feel like you can easily catch up. You know, but so there's a lot of work, and aside from that, I still do rites of passage. In fact, I'm getting ready to get another cohort started up soon for young boys with a brother out of the South Bronx. So he's actually a very popular rapper, and he's very interested in doing some community work. So we're getting, you know, I told him let's do some rites of passage because he's got the name and all of that. So that's hood work. I ran for a long time an ATI program out of Newark, New Jersey. Doesn't get much hood than that, and that's an alternative to incarceration program where I was taking gang members, going to the judge saying, listen, before you send them, you know, to Clinton, or before you take them to the county, let me have them for 30 days. And if he gets through my program, or I have men and women, if she gets through my program, then just put them on probation. So I did that for a long time, up until recently. So, I mean, and I still run programs like that from time to time. Now, the reason I have more than that. We're not even talking about the work that I do over the continent that I don't really want to talk about. But you want to talk about hood, that's where the hoods are. You know, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm able to do that because of the level that I've achieved. So I actually have a distance that I can transverse to go back to help. You see, so like when I go to Harlem, or I go a lot of places. I was not Richmond. I did a lot of programs out of Richmond, Virginia. I did a lot of work in Miami. You know, so when I'm going into those environments and working with people, it's actually a long step from where I am right now because of all the work that I've done to get to where I'm at right now. Not everyone can do that. Some people are, you know, let's say if the hood is at level 0, some people are at 0.5 or at 1, you know, saying, oh, I'm going to go back. So I'm just going to say that I wanted to kind of put that in a little bit, that the Anu work, we do service. In fact, we have a prison outreach ministry. So we are giving back, but you have to, it's almost like when you're doing spiritual work for people, you have to be sanctioned to do that work, or you could get yourself messed up. Before you start going and cutting up chickens and stuff like that to try to help somebody in their situation, you could take on their karma, and you're killing animals that the Most High created. You didn't make that animal. The Most High made, and you're just going to take it off the planet because you don't know what you're doing, because you haven't learned enough to really help in that way. So you end up messing yourself up. Well, it's the same thing a lot of times when we want to go back and help. Some of us are just coming off of substance abuse issues. And we say, well, let's go back and help. And now you going into bars and stuff. Next thing you know, you the one who don't come out the bar. Oh, I got to use the bathroom for a second. I'll catch up with y'all at the shrine. I'll meet you at the shrine. Or you want to be about blah. You rocking all that rum and gin. Like, hold on, that's for the Orisha. Hold on, there ain't nothing left. So some of us are not far enough out of our situations. Like, I meet sisters sometimes who are straight up sluts, and they need to deal with that sluttery. And instead of dealing with the sluttery, they go right into wanting to teach tantric sciences. Or I'm going to be a tantric priestess.
Yeah.
But you haven't even owned your sex yet. You don't even understand it yet. But, you want to hurry up and get back. And now what happens is you go be a tantric priestess, but you're sleeping with all your students. And now you get a bad name in the community because you haven't gotten to the point where you could own that lust and sex yet. So I'm just saying, I felt it would be a good idea to add that, because some of you may not be aware that, there's a lot of community work that I still do, and sometimes I snatch up other people, other students, say, come on, we're going to go do here. I'm going to go speak over here. Come on, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But get your degrees first. Go through the training first. Get balanced and get strong first, because if you don't do that first, you're just running your mouth. You just, what we're going to go do is you ain't going to do nothing because you didn't do it. You would have did it already if you was going to do anything. You're just talking because you don't even have the strength to do that yet. You got to get your strength first. And let me just make this one, I know I'm going, but let me make this one last point. For you men who were talking all that community saving stuff, if you don't have a family, quiet that down, please. Okay, we have enough single men, single males, because we don't know if you're a man anyway. If you don't have a child, you didn't make a child, and you're not managing and negotiating a relationship with a woman, we're not sure what you are. So you got to prove it to us before we can put our community or our children in front of you for you to quote unquote heal them. But if you don't have your base established first, then your work will be in balance, and you may end up in situations where you'll compromise yourself. That's why you see these sex scandals and whatnot with a lot of these people in the communities, quote unquote lecturers, because they don't have a family. So I go and I speak in a room full of 200 women, lonely women who are going home to vibrators and cats and Netflix. And I'm up there and I'm teaching, and they're, oh man, wow. I'm in a room full of 200 vulnerable women, and if I'm not based and solid, then I'm going to do something because I'm also vulnerable. So I would say whatever it is you're talking about implementing in the community, implement it in your homestead first, and let us see it. Let us see the value of what you're talking about, because we respond quicker to what we see rather than what we hear.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
You know what? Even as you were speaking, something else came to mind just about the going back and helping. One of the things I know you spoke on one show is that, and even in this show, is that you're not coming down off of your throne. Some people have to reach up. You got to reach up and get it. I can't keep, some people are not going to keep force feeding you, and no one's going to step down to try to bring you up. Maybe, you're still a little wishy-washy, maybe not, I'm not sure, I don't know. Like, at some point you got to reach up, and it reminds me of the just the creation story with Obatala. Obatala doesn't come down. He drops the chain down. So it's there, but you gotta reach up and you gotta climb up that chain. That energy is not coming down. Obatala doesn't touch the earth.
You have to leave breadcrumbs. Look at it just like you're walking down a path and you're tossing crumbs behind you. That's what you're doing. You know, you're not turning around. You're not turning your body around and running back, because that's the snake chasing its own tail. That's an offering that we give to Orunmila. You know, it represents regeneration. But you're not regenerating from your past. You're regenerating from the value and the principles that you're learning moving forward. You know, so it's almost like you're really, in this tradition, and in all spiritual traditions, you're not chasing your tail, you're chasing your head. You're trying to figure out what your head is doing. What is my Ori saying? What is my Ori doing? You don't want to chase the tail. So what you just do, like when I'm doing shows and stuff, I'm just dropping breadcrumbs because I'm still studying. I'm still trying to figure out Ifa. I'm still trying to get it. You know, and I teach Ifa. I go to Nigeria to teach Ifa, and I'm still figuring out. I'm still trying to figure out the phenomena of electricity. Just how, like, you know, really, you know. So, but I'm dropping breadcrumbs. Hey, if anybody wants to come, if you find yourself on this path, here, just follow these crumbs. But there has to be that pyramidal or that innate fire first. And if that innate fire is there, the path will be illuminated to you. You may not know what to do on the path, but that's where guides and teachers like me come in, where we say, well, listen, I left this training, there's videos, there's this, that. Those are your breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to go ahead and close, but the conversation has been really, really good and interesting. Like I said, the past 3 strongs, you know, this is all kind of related, you know, all these things kind of run into each other. And like you said, nobody can give you that, nobody can put that fire in you. You got to reach up. You got to, people are leaving, you know, people have dropped the chain down. People are leaving the breadcrumbs. But, you know, I can't force you to pick it up. And then, you know, even another post you said, you know, sometimes people will just try to throw a monkey wrench in it just to have something to do. And sometimes we got a lot of those people too. And you can't go back and save those people. Like you said, some people are just going to be left behind. So, you know, even in our learning and as we're learning, we got to kind of have that wisdom to know who is who. And you know, are they going to do what they say they're going to do? It's not that you're giving up on them. It's just that, you know, you can recognize it. And so if they're not picking up the breadcrumbs, or if they're not, you know, making an effort themselves, sorry. I mean, I don't know what else you can do about that, you know. So I think that's something too that we got to keep in mind. But thank you, Chief, for all the breadcrumbs you dropped. And thanks to all the callers. Chief, Sister Tasha, thank you for your testimony and for your accountability, and Sister Michelle and everyone else that called in. And again, I just hope that this kind of sparks something in those of you that are calling. And again, if you're interested in what we're doing and you want to be a part of it, make sure you sign up for the ministry. Go to anewlifeglobal.org. Sign up. Let us know what you can do or what you can offer, and take the training. You know, just like Chief said, something has got to qualify you. You can't just, you know, you're not just going to come in a space and just start spewing off a whole bunch of stuff based on nothing, just based on some random thoughts in your head. I mean, the training and everything is structured. This is anew. So, you know, take the training. And go ahead and join, you know, if that fire is in you to do, you know, to join what we're doing and to be a part of what we're doing. So, again, anewlifeglobal.org, seduluhouse.com for the training and the classes. All the archive shows are on enlightenmentandtransformation.com and the YouTube pages. Check out my page, Serious Bitch, and that's on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and the website as well, seriousbitch.com. Okay. So until Thursday, thank you all for participating and commenting, and make sure you share the videos, subscribe, share the videos, start the conversation, and I don't know, you know, let's get active. Okay. So until Thursday, again, peace. I'm Kim.